Beneath the pristine beauty of Yellowstone, beyond the rivers, canyons, and forests, lies a deeper truth. This land breathes. It hisses, bubbles, roars, and, if ancient legends are to be believed, speaks. Long before Yellowstone became a national park, long before any map marked its name, this was a sacred land. The Shoshone, Lakota, Crow, and other indigenous peoples did not simply see it as wilderness. They saw it as alive, a place where the earth opened its mouth and whispered to the skies. In the cold mornings, when steam blankets the valley floor, the geysers erupt not just with water, but with memory. The Shoshone tell of spirits who live beneath the ground, guardians of fire and stone. Each geyser was a voice, each fumarole a breath. The land, to them, was not just active, it was conscious. One of the oldest legends speaks of a great spirit below, whose heartbeat could be felt through the trembling earth. When he was angry, geysers exploded higher. When calm, the pools simmered gently. Elders listened to the land's rhythms like reading signs in the sky. Modern science explains this with volcanic pressure, geothermal vents, and underground chambers of magma. Yellowstone sits atop one of the largest supervolcanoes on Earth, a sleeping colossus. But even the most rational scientists admit, standing near the Grand Prismatic Spring or watching Old Faithful erupt, there's an uncanny sense of presence, as if something watches back. Among the tribes, stories were passed from generation to generation. The hot springs, they said, could heal, but only if the spirits allowed it. Step in without permission, and you might never return. Even today, signs near Yellowstone's pools warn of danger, not just from the heat, but from the fragile crust. Several tragic incidents have occurred. Hikers stepping off trail, falling through thin ground into boiling water beneath. One such case in 2016 ended in seconds. The man dissolved almost completely. Some say the earth claimed him. Are these stories merely cautionary tales? Perhaps, but they align eerily with what science confirms. The crust around Yellowstone's hydrothermal features is as thin as a pie crust, beautiful, but deadly. In tribal belief, this was never random. It was the will of the land. Recent geological studies confirm what the stories hinted at all along. There is a heartbeat under Yellowstone. NASA imagery and seismic readings have shown breathing ground, swelling and contracting with invisible power. But what's fascinating is this. Oral traditions of the local tribes describe these same movements centuries before satellites existed. The land grows in size, said one Shoshone elder in the 1800s. Like it remembers. Could it be that what we call legend is simply a form of understanding the earth through different senses? This is not the only place on Earth where myths and geothermal forces intertwine. But Yellowstone feels personal. It hums with heat, breathes mist, and guards its secrets tightly. The tribes understood something we're only beginning to rediscover. That places are not just made of stone and soil. They hold memory. And sometimes, they speak. You just have to know how to listen. In the dark hours before dawn, when the wind quiets and the geysers hiss like distant serpents, some say a creature stirs. It does not belong to the animal kingdom, nor to the world of men. The stories call it many names: the burning beast, the smoke walker, or simply the fire spirit. Its legend is old, passed in whispers by trappers, rail workers, and early settlers. But it's older still, echoing in the chants of indigenous elders who warned, "Do not walk the valleys when the steam grows thick. That is when the spirit walks." According to the Crow and Lakota oral traditions, the beast appears only in moments of imbalance, when the earth is angry or disturbed. It rises from the hot springs, eyes glowing like burning coal, body shaped not from flesh, but from the same materials that fuel the volcano beneath: magma, ash, and ancient wrath. The first written account comes from 1872. A trapper named Silas Jefferson described a flaming figure near the Norris Geyser Basin that seemed to move without touching the ground. He watched it for several minutes before it vanished into the sulfur mist. His hands were burned, but he claimed he never got close to fire. Skeptics dismissed the tale, calling it hallucination caused by volcanic gases. But in the decades that followed, more reports came. Rangers, tourists, and even geologists have claimed to see something unnatural walking in the steam. In 1934, a Yellowstone surveyor wrote in his field journal, The steam grew red, like blood in sunlight. I felt heat, yet no fire was near. Then I saw it. Tall, limping, glowing at the edges. I froze. I have never felt fear like that again. No photographs exist. Only sketches, words, and rumors. So what could this creature be? Geologists point to natural phenomena. Hallucinations caused by hydrogen sulfide gas, optical illusions in dense fog, even the brain's fear response interpreting steam shadows as monsters. And yet some things don't add up. Infrared drone footage taken in 2021 during a geothermal survey picked up an anomalous heat signature moving against the wind, across terrain with no visible wildlife. The team chalked it up to a glitch, but one technician saved the footage. When enhanced, the form was eerily upright. Then there are the burns. Several reported encounters end with minor burns on skin or clothing, without exposure to flames. One ranger in 2007 reported finding the remains of a deer, its fur singed, flesh intact, no signs of predators. Around it, the soil was scorched in a perfect circle, but there were no footprints. Coincidence? Or something stranger? Within the Park Service, there are whispers, unofficial, undocumented, of areas where equipment fails, compasses spin, and radios go dead. Rangers avoid them at night. Some call these places burn zones. No signs mark them, but every veteran knows. The indigenous tribes, when told of these zones, simply nod. That is where he walks, one elder said. When he walks, the land remembers the fire. Interestingly, seismologists have noticed microquakes beneath certain parts of the geyser basin that correspond to these zones. The ground trembles slightly, not enough to be dangerous, but enough to suggest movement below. Movement of what? Is the burning beast a living being? A personification of Yellowstone's volatile energy? Or a story we've created to cope with the overwhelming power beneath our feet? There is no definitive answer, but the frequency of sightings, the consistency of the descriptions, and the emotional weight in the voices of those who speak of it, it all suggests something deeper. Whether real or symbolic, the fire spirit of Yellowstone taps into our primal fear, that nature is not only beautiful, but also merciless, ancient, and aware. Maybe, just maybe, the land watches us as closely as we watch it. And when it does not like what it sees, it sends a warning. A shape in the fog, eyes like burning coal. A beast made not of flesh, but of Earth's memory. In a land shaped by fire and time, what lies beneath is often more mysterious than what lies above. While tourists flock to Yellowstone's surface wonders, the geysers, the canyons, the rainbow springs, few ever think about the caverns below. Fewer still know the legends that swirl beneath their feet. Among the oldest of these stories is the tale of a city buried deep under Yellowstone, a place built not by modern hands, but by an unknown civilization long lost to time. A city of stone halls, spiraling staircases, and chambers carved into the rock, hidden from the world, erased from memory. It is known in whispered lore as the Hollow Below. The origin of this legend traces back to several indigenous oral traditions, especially those of the Crow and Shoshone peoples. They spoke of sacred caverns where the earth sings, deep, echoing halls where ancestors once walked among glowing walls, and rooms of stone light. These weren't just metaphors. Some elders described doorways in the rocks that opened to vast chambers, too geometrical to be natural, too ancient to be traced. European trappers in the early 1800s claimed to have stumbled upon strange openings in remote cliff faces, vents that led to seemingly endless tunnels. One journal entry from 1825 recounts a chamber so large, our lanterns could not find the ceiling, and the air was still warm. Most of these accounts were dismissed, but some refused to forget. In the 1930s, a geologist named Raymond Willard conducted unofficial surveys in Yellowstone's backcountry. His notes, hidden for decades and later recovered by his granddaughter, contain cryptic descriptions. The cave mouth was no larger than a man's shoulders, but inside, impossible geometry. The walls curved like ribs. I heard a hum, low, steady, and the floor was not stone. It was something else. He tried to return a year later. The passage had vanished, or had been sealed. No official maps mention it. Yet, Yellowstone's geology supports the possibility of vast underground voids. Beneath the park lies one of the world's largest active magma systems, surrounded by endless networks of steam chambers, gas tunnels, and thermal caverns. In 2017, NASA's InSight thermal imaging picked up a series of unusual hollow zones deep beneath the park, areas of unexplained coolness and symmetry. Not magma, not rock, something else. Could this legend be more than a myth? Skeptics argue it's nothing more than folklore exaggerated by the strange acoustics and formations found in geothermal caves. But even today, cave explorers in the surrounding regions report hearing rhythmic echoes, unlike natural dripping or wind. One explorer in 1998 entered an unmarked lava tube west of the park boundary. He claimed to follow it for nearly a mile before finding a smooth-walled hall, with corners so perfect they looked laser-cut. Before he could take photos, the walls began to shake. He turned back. The tunnel collapsed behind him. His story never made the news, but it spread, quietly, among those who listen. So who would build a city beneath Yellowstone, and why? Some believe it was not built by humans at all. Fringe researchers point to similarities between the hollow below and the ant people legends of the Hopi or the underground sky chambers of the Zuni. All describe beings that lived beneath the earth, emerging only after great cataclysms. Another theory, survivors of a pre-ice age civilization sought refuge underground, where heat from the earth could sustain life. And one theory goes further, suggesting that beneath the magma fields lies an interface, a kind of natural gateway to another space, another realm. A concept whispered not just in myth, but in quantum physics. Wild speculation? Perhaps. But history teaches us that yesterday's myths often become today's mysteries and tomorrow's discoveries. Whether a forgotten civilization, a natural wonder, or the invention of minds drawn to mystery, the legend of Yellowstone's hidden city persists. It raises questions about what we've yet to discover, or what's been deliberately hidden. And most haunting of all, if such a place exists, who or what still dwells in its silence? Chast 4, Golasa, Tumanye, Brizriki, Yellowstone. Yellowstone by day is a place of wonder, but by night it changes. The wind sounds different. The air thickens. Shadows seem to move on their own. And for those who've dared to stay after sunset, a chilling pattern emerges. They hear voices. Not the rustle of wind or the chatter of animals, but clear, human voices. Whispers, cries, laughter, and sometimes footsteps approaching, then suddenly stopping. Ask enough park rangers and off-record wilderness guides, and you'll hear the same story repeated. You think you're alone in the woods, and then you realize you're not. In the late 1800s, during the early years of Yellowstone's designation as a national park, several workers, from railmen to road builders, began documenting strange phenomena. Disembodied voices calling their names, shadows moving against the wind, tools going missing and reappearing in impossible places. In 1894, a night guard at Mammoth Hot Springs wrote in his log, "Heard singing near the pool. A woman's voice, low and mournful. Walked the perimeter. Found no one. Singing stopped when I spoke. No woman was registered in the area. No explanation was ever found." These weren't isolated accounts. Even today, staff and visitors alike report chilling encounters in remote areas, especially near old cabins, hydrothermal basins, and stretches of road that rarely see foot traffic. Skeptics often point to natural explanations. The wind echoing off stone, animals mimicking sounds, volcanic gases causing lightheadedness. And yes, Yellowstone is full of elements that can trick the senses. But even in the cold light of science, some experiences defy easy answers. A 2015 wildlife camera near Lamar Valley picked up unexplained audio, a child's laugh, followed by silence. No people were recorded in the area for miles in either direction. That same week, a solo backpacker reported hearing a child's voice calling from the trees. He spent the night in his tent, frozen in fear. He was found the next morning, pale, disoriented, and unable to speak for several hours. Indigenous beliefs offer a different explanation. The Shoshone and Crow both speak of spirit echoes, residual energies of the dead, tied to sacred or wounded places. In their tradition, Yellowstone was not only a holy site, but also a battlefield. For centuries before European arrival, rival tribes fought for control of the region's sacred springs and hunting grounds. Death came not in small numbers, but in brutal waves. The land remembers, and perhaps it speaks through the voices left behind. Even the United States Army, which oversaw Yellowstone before the Park Service was founded, logged unusual reports from soldiers stationed at the Fort Yellowstone complex. One file, dated 1901, described multiple soldiers hearing a woman sobbing beneath the floorboards of the barracks. The sound would start and stop unpredictably. Inspections found nothing. But it's not just the old cabins and battlefields. There are accounts from tourists hiking alone who hear footsteps following them, steady, deliberate. But when they turn around, there's no one. One man reported walking through Gibbon Meadow at dusk, only to hear two voices behind him having a conversation in a language he couldn't understand. He began to film, but when he reviewed the footage later, there was nothing, not even the sound. The area where he heard the voices? Once the site of an early settler camp, wiped out in the winter of 1877 by exposure and starvation. 25 died. Only one body was ever recovered. Are these ghosts in the traditional sense? Echoes of lives once lived? Or is the land itself replaying moments from the past, like a scratched record? Some scientists have suggested a theory known as stone tape theory, the idea that certain geological environments can record emotional energy and replay it under the right conditions. Yellowstone's unique mix of quartz, geothermal pressure, and magnetic anomalies makes it, they say, the perfect candidate. Whether emotional resonance or literal spirits, something lingers. The fog settles, the wind quiets, and the voices begin. Some try to explain them. Others just listen and leave. It is the largest high-altitude lake in North America. Yellowstone Lake stretches across nearly 140 square miles, its depths concealing both geological wonders and something far stranger, something that many believe is alive. For over a century, scattered reports have surfaced of a creature dwelling in the lake's icy waters. Locals call it the Yellowstone Lake Monster. To others, it's simply the thing below. Long dismissed as folklore, the legend refuses to disappear. In fact, as the years pass, the accounts grow eerily consistent. The first recorded sighting dates back to 1871, when members of the Hayden Geological Survey claimed to see a dark object moving swiftly beneath the lake's surface. One entry describes a ridge or hump gliding against the current, too large to be a fish or log. In 1894, a park visitor named Jonathan Lane described what he saw as a snake the size of a wagon, swimming in loops. His story was published in local papers, ridiculed by scientists, and then quietly forgotten, until the 20th century brought more sightings. More detail, more fear. In 1937, a ranger patrolling the lake's southern shoreline reported a dark form surfacing and submerging multiple times near Stevenson Island. His description, 30 feet long, dark-scaled, moving with unnatural smoothness. He radioed for backup. When others arrived, nothing. No trace. No wake. Just silence. Could it have been a trick of light? A misidentified moose? Perhaps. But the sightings kept coming. Fishermen speak of deep pulls on their lines that snap without warning. Kayakers have reported pressure waves hitting their boats in calm water, waves that shouldn't exist. And in 2002, a family on a private boat captured footage of a shape moving beneath the water. The clip, later uploaded online, shows a dark form several meters long cruising silently just beneath the surface, leaving a V-shaped wake. Skeptics call it a submerged log, but logs don't move against the current, and they don't dive. What could this creature be? Biologists propose sturgeon, giant bottom-dwelling fish known to grow over 10 feet long. But no sturgeon have ever been confirmed in Yellowstone Lake. Others blame optical illusions, underwater gas releases, or floating debris. But none of these explain the consistency of the reports. A large, dark shape, a long, serpentine body, eyes just beneath the surface, and, always, a sudden disappearance. The indigenous stories offer a different perspective. The Shoshone speak of a water spirit called Sikabia, said to guard the lake's depths and punish those who disrespect the land. Descriptions match the modern sightings almost exactly, centuries before the park ever existed. One crow tale tells of a creature with the head of a horse and the body of a serpent that would rise from the water during times of imbalance, particularly before eruptions or quakes. Modern seismologists may scoff, but Yellowstone sits on the edge of a massive caldera. It is constantly shifting, breathing. And according to USGS data, unusual gas releases from the lake bed sometimes occur in bursts, events that often precede small quakes. Could this explain the creature's appearance? Or is it responding to the Earth, not caused by it? Some have gone deeper, literally. In 1991, a national park dive team exploring geothermal vents beneath Yellowstone Lake reported a strange sonar echo, a moving target far larger than any known fish. When they tried to follow it, their gear began to fail. Instruments shut down. Cameras glitched. They surfaced. No answers. The anomaly was logged and buried. Today, access to the deeper lake bed is highly restricted. Officially, to protect the fragile geothermal structures. Unofficially, that's another question. So what do we make of it? A prehistoric survivor? A massive unknown species? A myth made real? Or is the lake itself alive? Its shifting temperatures, its strange tides, its gaseous emissions, creating a theater for our deepest fears to play out? Perhaps the Yellowstone Lake monster is not a creature at all, but a reflection, a shadow of something ancient that watches us from below. Unseen, undiscovered, waiting. There is a place in Yellowstone where the earth doesn't just speak, it growls. South of the Hayden Valley, where the forest gives way to barren hills, lies one of the park's most unsettling landscapes: Mud Volcano, Dragon's Mouth Spring, and Sulphur Cauldron. Together, they form what many locals call the Devil's Mouth. The name isn't metaphorical. It comes from the sound, a low, constant rumble that echoes through the hills like a throat clearing deep below the earth. Add to that the stench of sulfur, the boiling mud pits, the trembling ground. And it's easy to understand why ancient people believed something alive and angry lived here. The Crow Nation had many names for this place. One translates roughly to the place where the earth roars. In their tradition, it was a forbidden zone, believed to be a mouth through which angry spirits could pass between worlds. According to oral history, warriors who camped too close to the roaring spring at night would hear whispers from inside the cave. Some claimed to see eyes in the steam. Others never returned at all. Later, in 1870, early explorers named it Dragon's Mouth, not out of poetry, but fear. As one journal reads, "It hisses, it breathes, it growls as though something massive is just beneath the surface, stirring." And they weren't wrong. Modern geologists explain the sound as caused by pressurized gas, mostly hydrogen sulfide and carbon dioxide, escaping through superheated water channels. But the effect is disturbing. In 1989, seismometers recorded a series of harmonic tremors beneath this area, the same type of deep vibrations associated with magma movement. For 48 hours, the mud pots bubbled violently, new cracks appeared in the hills, and trees up to 30 feet away were scorched from unseen heat. Then it stopped. No eruption, no explanation. The area was temporarily closed. The official reason? Unstable hydrothermal conditions. But locals whispered something else. He woke up and went back to sleep. Some rangers have unofficial names for areas like this: breathers, moaners, and the vents. Places where the air is always hotter, compasses spin erratically, and animals refuse to go near. Motion sensor cameras placed near Sulphur Cauldron often glitch. Batteries drain. And more than once, they've captured unexplained flashes of light. Bursts that don't match lightning, wildlife, or human interference. Some believe these are simple malfunctions. Others, a signal, a warning. But the mystery goes deeper, literally. In 2017, a team of researchers drilled a small borehole to study geothermal gradients near Mud Volcano. What they found was unexpected. Beneath the mud was not just gas, but pockets of unknown microbial life, thriving at temperatures once believed uninhabitable. These extremophiles, organisms that live in boiling mud and toxic gas, are the stuff of science fiction. Alien, resilient, and potentially billions of years old. Could the legends of spirits, monsters, and devils be distorted echoes of real, unseen life, strange entities born of Earth's own heat? After all, to ancient eyes, anything invisible yet powerful, that breathes, burns, and speaks, can only be a god or a demon. To this day, the area around Dragon's Mouth remains one of the most volatile in the park. Visitors report dizziness, auditory hallucinations, and a feeling of being watched. Animals avoid the basin entirely. Some hikers turn back without knowing why. One tourist in 2013 described it perfectly. It wasn't the heat or the smell. It was the feeling that something was about to rise out of that cave, something ancient. So what is the Devil's Mouth? A geological marvel? A living ecosystem powered by fire? Or a window into something far older and more dangerous than we're ready to admit? Perhaps the Earth has places where the veil grows thin, where myth and magma meet, and where something, not dead, not alive, still breathes. The animals of Yellowstone are more than wildlife. They are living symbols. To modern visitors, a bison herd or a soaring eagle may be just part of the scenery. But to those who came before, they were messengers, omens, and protectors of sacred balance. And sometimes, according to both ancient legend and modern witnesses, they behave in ways that can't be explained. There are stories of animals disappearing, of entire herds vanishing overnight, of birds that fly in perfect circles above boiling springs, as if guided by an invisible force, and of skies that glow with colors no one can name, just before something changes deep within the earth. Are these natural patterns? Or are they part of something older and intelligent? The Crow people believe that certain animals in Yellowstone are not just physical beings, but spiritual bridges between worlds. The bison, in particular, is seen as a guardian, a creature that senses imbalance before it reaches the human world. There is a legend of the vanishing herd. Once, a great quake was approaching, and the bison of the valley began to move. Not migrate, vanish. One by one. Silent. No predators, no remains. Just gone. 2 nights later, the earth shook, and a geyser erupted where none had before. The message was clear, the bison knew. In 2004, park visitors witnessed something similar. A large group of bison suddenly bolted, not from wolves, but from nothing. They stampeded down a road, ignoring traffic, charging through open forest. 3 days later, a 4 magnitude quake struck just north of the park. Coincidence? Or ancient memory, embedded in DNA? Birds are no less mysterious. Ravens, often associated with death or prophecy in indigenous tradition, have been seen circling Yellowstone's geyser fields in perfect synchrony for hours. In 1999, a ranger watched a group of over 40 ravens form a spiraling pattern above Norris Geyser Basin. That night, Steamboat Geyser, dormant for over 50 years, erupted. When questioned, he said only, they were waiting. Even elk have been seen forming tight defensive circles around bubbling pools, a behavior unseen anywhere else in the wild. Some researchers believe it's instinct, but others ask, from what? Then there are the skies. Park guests have reported strange lights above the valleys, not meteors, not aircraft. Soft glows, hovering orbs, even what some describe as vertical lightning. NASA has recorded transient luminous events, TLEs, above volcanic areas. But in Yellowstone, they appear with no storm. In 2018, hikers near Shoshone Lake witnessed a green glow stretching upward from the horizon, pulsing silently. Minutes later, a large geyser, previously unknown, opened and erupted. The camera they used to film it? Corrupted. The compass? Spun in place. And when they uploaded the footage, it vanished. Not from their devices, from the cloud. So what do these signs mean? Some scientists argue that Yellowstone's unique geology, the magnetism, the heat, the minerals, creates environmental triggers for animal behavior. And the lights? Possibly ionized gas, interacting with magnetic fields. But indigenous traditions tell a different story. When the animals act strangely and the skies glow, it means the land is listening. The Lakotas speak of Wakantanka, the great mystery, a force that moves through nature in unseen patterns. They say animals are the first to hear its voice, and if we're wise, we listen to them. And perhaps that's what these legends truly are, not stories of monsters or magic, but warnings. Warnings that nature speaks, if we're willing to hear. The signs are there, in hoof and feather, in light and silence. Whether myth or message, Yellowstone's creatures still move to rhythms we don't fully understand. And the next time a bison disappears into the mist, or a raven spirals overhead, ask yourself, what does it see that we do not? Before Yellowstone was a park, Before it was marked on maps or photographed for postcards, it was a place of reverence. To the indigenous peoples of the region, it was more than wilderness. It was a temple, a place where the earth touched the sky, where spirits walked beside mortals, and where rituals shaped the balance of life. Scattered throughout Yellowstone's backcountry are odd stone formations, mysterious carvings, and isolated rock piles that defy easy explanation. Officially, many are labeled glacial debris or natural arrangements, but some look like altars. In 1923, a park surveyor named Daniel Kincaid documented several stone rings and upright slabs near the base of Mount Sheridan. One, he noted, had clearly been shaped by hands, not by time. He was instructed not to include the site on official maps. The report vanished from public records for over 60 years. It resurfaced only after a researcher uncovered a private journal, Kincaid's, now preserved in a Montana archive. In it, he described finding not just shaped stones, but burnt bones nearby. Not animal, not large, not easily explained. He wrote, "It felt like stepping into a prayer that hadn't ended, only paused." Such discoveries are not isolated. In the early 2000s, during trail restoration work near the Heart Lake region, workers unearthed a flat stone platform aligned precisely with sunrise during the spring equinox. Beneath it, layers of charcoal, ash, and fragments of obsidian tools. The site was quickly closed to the public and reburied for preservation. But according to internal memos obtained through FOIA requests, one geologist wrote, "This looks like an offering site, possibly used seasonally. The alignment is too perfect for accident." Could it be that ancient peoples performed rituals here, not just to survive, but to communicate with the earth itself? Some researchers suggest that what we call sacrifices may have been part of spiritual conversations, acts of balance between humans and nature. But there are darker theories. Among certain Shoshone stories, there are tales of soul stones, places where spirits were bound by blood and stone. These sites were feared, not worshipped. Marked by spiral carvings and always near geothermal vents, they were thought to hold restless forces. One such place, known in legend as the Place of Turning Eyes, was said to consume the minds of those who entered. Travelers would walk in and never return the same. Modern parallels? In 1997, a backcountry ranger found a stone circle near a mud vent, surrounded by animal bones. The ranger, healthy and experienced, began suffering nightmares and disorientation after the encounter. Within weeks, he resigned and vanished from public life. Could there be something ancient and dangerous embedded in these places? Not in the Hollywood sense. No curses or monsters, but an imprint, a residue, the psychic memory of rituals performed for generations. Geologists confirm that Yellowstone's mineral-rich landscape can conduct energy, both electrical and magnetic. Could it also hold emotional charge? Trauma? Intention? Many indigenous elders think so. One Lakota elder once said, "The land remembers every word, every cry, every drop of blood. That is why we tread lightly." We often think of Yellowstone as wild, untouched. But maybe it's not untouched, just unacknowledged. A place layered with forgotten rituals, sacred geometry, and echoes of something we were never meant to erase. And if you stumble upon a stone circle on a lonely trail, half buried in moss and time, step carefully. You might not be the first soul to stand there, and you won't be the last. National parks are meant to be places of peace, protected, beautiful, and safe. But some places resist that simplicity. Yellowstone is one of the most visited parks in America. Millions arrive each year, but not all leave. Some disappear. No signs of struggle, no notes, no logical explanation, just gone. Officially, Yellowstone averages a handful of missing persons each year. Most are found. Some wander off trails, others suffer medical emergencies. But every now and then, a case lingers. Like the story of Dennis Walker, a 28-year-old geology student who vanished in 2016 near the Beckler River Trail. He left camp for a morning hike. An experienced outdoorsman. Good weather. Full gear. He never returned. Rescue teams combed the area for 10 days. Dogs picked up his scent briefly, then lost it. Not fading, but ending. As if he stepped off the world. His last GPS ping? Logged at 3:03 a.m. in a geothermal zone where no trail existed. The device was never recovered. Neither was he. There's also the case of Sarah Kent, a 42-year-old photographer who documented thermal features near Norris Basin in 2019. She texted her husband a photo of something glowing in the fog. That was the last message she ever sent. Her car was found parked normally, camera gear gone. Her phone, later recovered in a shallow hot spring, had no damage, except for the final image. It was corrupted, showing only static and a strange light pattern resembling concentric circles. To this day, no trace of her has been found, except one, a shoe, found 4 miles away, neatly placed on a rock. As if set there, disappearances happen everywhere. Parks, wilderness, deserts. But in Yellowstone, patterns emerge, unnerving patterns. Reports of strange lights shortly before the person goes missing. Electronic malfunctions, compasses spinning, cameras glitching, phones dying. Search dogs refusing to enter certain areas, whining or turning back. Sudden, unexplained weather changes. Some rangers refer to these zones unofficially as dead spots. Not because people die there, but because nothing remains. No tracks, no echoes, just stillness. One ranger, requesting anonymity, described such a zone near the southern rim. It felt like walking into a vacuum. Birds stopped. My radio cut out. I walked 30 feet in, then every hair on my arm stood up. I turned around. I've never gone back. Could these vanishings be natural? Certainly. The terrain is harsh. Weather changes fast. Wildlife is unpredictable. But then there are the anomalies. In 2021, seismic monitoring devices registered low-frequency pulses in the backcountry, evenly spaced, lasting several minutes. Researchers tried to triangulate the source. It moved. Not like an animal. Not like a quake. Then the pulses stopped. The following morning, a solo camper named Liam Archer was declared missing in the same sector. Unrelated? Maybe. But the locals noticed. Conspiracy theories, of course, have followed. Some believe in portals, natural energy vortices where people can slip out of our reality. Others blame secret government facilities beneath the park, masked by geothermal activity. But the most haunting theory? That Yellowstone itself, the land, the system, the intelligence beneath, takes them. Not out of malice, not as punishment, but as payment. For trespassing where we shouldn't. For asking too many questions. For getting too close to something ancient. Disappearances are tragic. They leave behind more than questions. They leave silence. And in Yellowstone, that silence speaks loudly. It reminds us that this land is not tamed. That some paths are not meant to be followed. And that some who enter do not return, not because they're lost, but because they were chosen. Yellowstone is one of Earth's greatest treasures, a sanctuary of raw, untamed nature. It is a place of science, of beauty, of geological wonder. But it is also a place of mystery. We've walked through its steam-filled basins and listened to the stories whispered in fog. We've followed trails that vanish, watched animals behave like prophets, and examined ruins that might not be ruins at all. For some, these are just campfire tales, coincidences layered with folklore. But for others, there's something more. The indigenous peoples who lived here long before the first roads were built spoke of Yellowstone not as a destination, but as a living being. It breathed. It watched. It responded. They didn't need seismographs to know the land could speak. They didn't need satellites to know something moved beneath the crust. They listened and remembered. Science has since caught up. We now know of the supervolcano sleeping below. We understand the geothermal forces, the seismic pressures, the microbial life born of fire. We see the magnetism, the unpredictability, the shifting power. And yet, the answers never feel complete. Because Yellowstone defies neat explanations. So where does the myth end and the truth begin? Maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe, in places like this, myth is a kind of truth, passed down in symbols and stories because words alone couldn't contain it. Maybe the fire beast isn't a creature, but the name we give to volcanic fury. Maybe the underground city isn't real, but speaks to our deep fear that something lies beneath us, watching. Maybe the ghosts are trauma etched into stone, replaying forever. And maybe the animals, the skies, the disappearances, all remind us that Yellowstone is not a park. It is a mirror, a threshold, a test. The legends are not just stories. They are warnings. They are memories. They are signs we've chosen to ignore. Because deep in the heart of Yellowstone, something ancient still breathes. Not evil, not good, just eternal. And it does not need to be believed to be real. It was here long before us, and it will remain long after. Yellowstone doesn't belong to us. We are only visitors, and not all visitors are remembered, but some are never forgotten.